Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So in this video we are going to be making a decorative door knocker. So this is a very simple ring type door knocker that you can make. There's one complexity to it, and that is where we will be making a weld or one single ring weld, but we'll get to that here in just a second, and that'll be on the hoop portion itself. You can avoid having to do this if you just round up, say, the ends and then just terminate them to where they just come together and touch. You can certainly do that, but we will be doing a forge weld on this particular piece when we get to that point. So some quick dimensions: we are working with a piece of 3/8 inch square stock for this first portion of this project. I might actually break this up into two videos. I'm not so sure right now as I'm starting, but we are working with a piece of 3/8 inch square bar that's 12 inches long, or that is 9.5 millimeters square by 300 millimeters long for those of you across the pond or in the other nations that like to use metric. Anyways, the wall bracket portion itself will be an entirety of 8 inches long or 200 millimeters long, and then we'll be making cuts in from the end 2 inches on each end with a bandsaw, which we've already done here. I've already went ahead and pre-prepped this so you don't have to watch that, but we'll be coming in 2 inches or to the 50 mil mark from each end. So let's start with the ring. That shouldn't be too horribly complex to start with. Let's do that first and get right into this project. Okay, so first things first, we want to go ahead and lock this thing off in the vise. Clamp on about an inch worth of material, and then we're going to go ahead and put our vise, our other end of our twisting wrench on here. And the goal here is simply to just make one nice, even, smooth twist on this bar. We're going to take it up fairly tight, so just go with it. We want this tighter than what, say, like a modern manufacturing twisting machine might do. We wanted this to be fairly tight looking in the twist spectrum. Go ahead and clean this up a little bit so you guys can see what's going on there. Get that completely cleaned up. And then we'll have to straighten that out a little bit before we twist it to the next one. So we're going to put it on the diagonals, put it in the vise. Just give it some little squeezes here. I'll take any of those little twists and whatnots we have right out of it. Well, not the twists, but you know what I'm saying, the bends. So now we're going to go ahead and heat up this portion here a little bit more, and we're going to keep twisting that, then we'll flip it around and we'll do the same until we have one nice even twisted section. Again, gripping it in the vise for about an inch of material, getting my twisting wrench on the other end, and we're just going to go ahead and tighten this up until, again, it looks reasonably about the same amount. We're going to have to open the hot portion right back up. We were able to get this mostly twisted nicely. This is not super critical that this is all perfect. You're going to be bending it around. Just the better looking, the more even the twist is, the better off the final piece will end up looking. The reason for not twisting this in, this last little inch here, is because this is what's going to form the scarf of our weld and be rounded up later on to actually go into our door knocker. So we don't need to take and work on that just yet. We don't want to twist that all the way up to that point, because then that'll leave us some cold shuts and some areas that we can trap scale in when we go to weld this. Now we're right on to the other end, and again, just keep twisting this up. We're just wanting to go till it looks about right. Got to open it back up a little bit, just to get everything even. That looks pretty good right there. And that's fairly even. It's not perfect, but it's close enough for what we need here. So go ahead and get this on here. Go ahead and put her in here, straighten it up. Use your vise to straighten it ever so slightly. Don't get carried away with this. It's a habit to do that, and then if you got any sort of cross hatching, which my vise does in the jaws, you can leave that bite marks all over the twisted section. So don't do that if you can keep from it. So now, next process, we're going to go ahead and scarf the ends on this and then bend it around to get it welded. This piece is almost up to heat on the one end. We're going to draw the scarf or the toe and everything right down here on the near side of the anvil. Something to keep in mind, these are meant to fit like so on top of each other. So we're going to keep that in mind when we flip it around to do the other end. Go to the anvil. Half on, half off blows to create a toe. Then we'll thin that out by using the edge of the anvil. This is kind of just to fuller out the material ever so slightly. We don't want a real long toe on this. In fact, that's just a little longer than what I would like. But what we have here will work fine. It's just to create a little bit of a step and to blend out this transition. So get all this cleaned up. Make sure you keep that in line. Now it's time to go ahead and flip it around. Do the other side. At all points you want to try to take and keep in mind, or try and keep in mind this here. We don't want to hammer on this a lot. We just want to focus our blows right on the end. So we'll get this hot real quick. So I've got the other scarf laying up, palm up of the scarf. I'm going to come right in here. Again, create another little scarf section. Straighten it up. That'll be good enough for what we're doing with it. And now we're good to go. Now the only thing for us to do is to go ahead and bend this right on around. So depending on which way you're going with one or the other, this will start the direction that the toe is, and then this will go in the reverse direction of the toe is. So we will go ahead and get this. Man, that's not proper English, is it? I'm getting worse as I get older, apparently. We'll get this hot one more time, and then we'll start that bend right on the horn here and keep working this around until we get a ring. Alrighty, I'm using a wooden mallet, excuse me, not a rawhide mallet, and we're just going to hammer this right on around. We want to keep that ring going right on around, and we don't want it to get too twisted, so watch that to put that back in check. It's going to want to twist on you as you go, so be careful with that. We just want to get that started in that direction. Go ahead and keep it clean. This is a good time to do so. As we progress along the work here, it's going to be harder to keep that clean on the inside of that joint. So that's starting around. We'll flip it, and we'll go ahead and do the other side, start bringing it around, and then we'll adjust the hoop later after we get it forge welded. Alrighty, right on around we go here. Again, try to keep this in mind. We don't want this to do too much twisting on us. You might have to give it an occasional pop to square it up. And right on around with this ring we go. Again, we want that to come off and square off ever so lightly. So I'll hammer that in. Just keep adjusting this. Again, keep in mind this is a twist, so we want to be very careful to do forming heats, not necessarily forging heats on this, using the appropriate methods. All right, good way to go ahead and brush it. Oops, dropped it. Whoa, 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 whoa. Go ahead and brush it good. And we're gonna go ahead and flip and do the other side. Just keep bringing these back closer and closer to one another until you get it. Okie dokie, here we go. We have almost got this right on around. This ring's looking good. It's starting to shape up nicely. These rings are really close to going together now. This is the perfect thing to go ahead and make them offset. I'm gonna offset them ever so slightly, just so we can get the one tucked under the other. Again, like I said, you're gonna end up adjusting this ring after it's welded anyhow. So don't get too crazy with this. We just want the scarves to fit nicely together and be roughly right on track of where they need to be. As I said before, this portion here, this is actually too long of a scarf. We don't really need that much scarf on it, but we're gonna go ahead and roll with it for this demonstration. You can obviously make them a lot shorter than that and you'll be just fine. Just fine. So be careful with your tongs when you're holding this, that you're not gripping areas that are super hot. That will end up marring it. You don't want them to mar up on you. And there we go. We're ready to go. We're going to stick that right in the fire, come right over the horn of the anvil, and go ahead and weld this right up as we go along here. After you make your weld, you want to be ginger with this, or real gentle if you can. And we're going to go ahead and shape our ring ever so lightly. And we're going to go ahead and work this weld in a little bit more. All right, so there you have it. If I can keep from dropping it. That's called a drop the item weld. So, anyways, this needs a lot of cleanup on it, but I'm not gonna make you guys watch all of that. It still needs a little bit of fixing, but that's okay. You guys get the ideal of this. We want to round off this area. That's why I was working it like a chain link over the horn here. We want to round off that area where the weld's at, because that's going to be where we swing this door knocker from. Again, there's still a lot of like fussy little tapping and cleanup of this and that to do. And if you don't have, say, a bottom swedge that can hold rings like this to clean this up, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and file this to a nice round cross section if you need to. But I'll go ahead and take one more heat on this, clean this up to being a perfect circle, except for this section here because it doesn't have to be, because it's going to be going through our band. But I'll go ahead and clean up the rest of this, get it to where I want it, and then we can move on to our bracket. So now we're going to take and we're going to give ourselves a courtesy bend on our bracket. We're going to get one of these legs moved out of the way, and then we're going to kind of make that open up ever so lightly. So we're going to take that one that way, and straighten this out again, take the other one the opposite way. We don't want to hammer directly against the anvil. We just want to help start providing ourselves a little bit of space. Now we're going to go ahead and get into the anvil in this orientation after we heat this back up, and drive those legs just a little further apart so we can do the work that we need to on them. So there you have it. That's all we're going to do for those. It's just a very simple kind of a leg design, simple bracket design. You can take those however you want. This is just one basic way of making some decorative little finials around a bracket. So we're going to flip this around, and we're going to do the same to the other side. Again, we want that to be the same look on the other side as well. Okay, so now we're going to work on this piece. I'll be over there with you here in a second. I need to cool off the legs, the individual legs, so this way they don't bend out of whack. But this is going to be the most trying bit for this whole bracket, other than that forge weld. We just want to cool off those legs. And now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and bend this right directly into and back on itself. This is the kind of the technical portion where a lot of stuff can go wonky on you very fast. You know, even though the weld is kind of a difficult portion for a lot of folks, this is actually the portion of the process where you have a lot of time and labor involved. So this is the part that you want to get right if you can. So we're going to try to get this as close to being equal as we can. We need to heat this up and bring these legs back a bit more. And then we're going to open this up ever so slightly so that we can fit this ring in here. Hopefully you guys can see where I'm going with this. But this is probably the trickiest portion of this process. Let's set one of these legs on here and try to drive this back a little bit. Again, like I said, we're just trying to get those to line up nicely. Now we need to get another pair of tongs in here and hopefully pry those open just ever so lightly. And then we can drop our ring in here. Give yourself a hot minute. It's going to take a minute to do this. Okay, now once we've got that, we want to do our best to try to hammer just behind the ring, just to capture it ever so lightly. Make sure you do that evenly from both sides. So this way you're capturing it evenly, if you will. I'll squeeze that there. We're not going to shape this around this just yet. We need to be able to tighten this up a little bit more. So if you guys can see how that's going, and we're almost ready to go to the vise to open this up. I'm going to get one more heat on this just to clean it up a little bit. So we're going to get this hot one more time and then take it over to the vise. Got the side up that I need to dress up, tighten up ever so lightly. There we go. That's good and tight. We're just tightening that up ever so lightly. Just take your time with this. If you feel like you're frustrated or getting in a rush, just stop for a moment, breathe. The important thing is to have this look nice. After all this hard work you've put into it, we want this to look nice. We can always clean some, we can hide a lot of sins with a file later if something's not quite where you want it, or maybe you had a rough misplaced hammer blow or something. We can always clean that up and hide a lot of sins with a file, so don't worry about that so much. So here we go. Nice and straightened up. Voila. Hot shaped right around the ring. That's what we're looking for. Now we need to grip this portion. Let me grab Mr. Thing. We got to grip this portion in the vise, and we've got to open this portion back up. So we're going to do that here in just a second. I'll meet you over at the vise. So this piece is good and warm. Our goal here is just to take and grab a hold of the round portion of it, nice and square-like, and we want to get this opened back up. Use a slitting chisel, or at least that's my preferred method. And we're going to go ahead and open this back up. And then lightly hammer down into the vise if you can, the bracket itself. And you may find that you have to give it a little hammer here or there just to tweak it to get things looking right or appropriate. There we go. And so that has your trapment for this door knocker portion. Now this is going to take a little bit of kind of finagling still to heat and loosen up this ring. We're just going to heat up and grab with a pair of tongs and loosen that ring just like you would do a rivet joint. One of the advantages of doing a ring like this, and you'll find this is kind of common a little bit in a Baroque styling, is that you can make drawer pulls or anything with this method, and you don't have to go through the extra effort of making a separate collared piece that these pieces go into. So it's a very handy and quick way of making like trunk latches, door knockers, you name it. This could really be applied wherever you like. So let me go ahead and get this hot again, and we'll loosen this right up. All right, nice and hot again. Make sure your piece is supported. Make sure you're keeping it nice and square. And hopefully we can start getting this to loosen right up. Might have to grip it in the vise once, or just support it there lightly, just to get this ring to start turning. It's perfectly all right. Set this down over here. Excuse me, ladies and gents. In a second. Put that down in there. There we go. Make sure these pieces stay nice and flush and flat and level. It's kind of a prerequisite. If it gets a little off to one side, you'll have to adjust that. But now it's just the finicky bits of doing this. Again, you want to kind of trap the ring. It's okay if it falls out. You can always tighten that joint up. This is kind of just live fitting this piece, and it's going to take a little bit of fandangling to do that. But once you do, everything's all said and done, this is what you end up with. So I won't keep you for the rest of this process. Again, it's just a bunch of little back and forth movements, but that's basically what the door knocker is, a really simple door knocker. And I'll try to put some finished photos or maybe a little finished video clip, you know, once I've got this fully installed on something so I can show you how it actually works. Okay, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Just got this done and put up on a little demonstration board for picture taking and things like that. Real quick, if you're going to make one of these, I made a mistake by making this area here, this flat area to go through here, a little bit too long. You may want to start it curving a little closer to this 1 inch or 25 millimeter equivalent here. You might want to start curving it just a little bit more and leave a little less of a flat. Because of that, this is going to knock to the left and right, which is not ideal. There's some things you can do that. You can drill a hole in it and put a copper pin on each side, and that'll stop it from going, you know, back and forth like that. Obviously, I could take this off, totally refinish it, and, you know, reheat it and bend it right in that area. But just give you guys some options if you get this far in your project and you decide that you don't want that. But yeah, anyways, so it freely knocks. Again, this is not the best fit up in the world. So, you know, you'll have to excuse that on camera. Something I strive to do better for in the future here. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, comment down below what you thought. And if you have any future suggestions or things like that, let me know. So that's it for today. God bless you all. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will catch you on the next one.